Hello there, Breaker DS here, and today I'm going to show you the complete deconstruction and reconstruction of the Longlight LR Bay Launcher. This one comes specifically from the Ace Dragon Starter Pack. So, as a Longlight launcher, it is a ripcord launcher. So, there are people that prefer ripcords over string launchers and vice versa. Each have their strengths and weaknesses. With Longlight launchers, there comes less points of failure, but the points of failure still remain. When you see people using Beyblades, a lot of times you will see them click in their launchers, like what I'm about to do right now, and you'll hear either loud clicks or something like this, a thudded click. What this actually does is it does damage your launcher. In some launchers, especially the Hasbro line of ripcord launchers, the ones that you get from the basic starter packs and like the Switch Strikes or the turbos, it really puts a wear and tear on the ripcords, which are thinner. But the main point of failure is not actually there. It's actually in this little area. Inside this area is the housing and a little plastic piece which people call the 8-ring, which I will show in this deconstruction. What actually happens is, as you're twisting it, there are little grooves in here that are on the outer plane, and this little 8-piece over here has two nubs where it grips onto in order to provide a nice grip for your launcher to launch on. And what happens is this area or the nub gets warped to the point where it doesn't hold grip any longer, so you can do this. On a nice fresh Longlight launcher, you won't be able to do this as easily. You'll actually feel some resistance. And further on in the guide, I'll show you a way to mod it in order to have it perform like if it was fresh, but that requires hot glue or a different substance or a different material in order to let the grip come back. So I have hot glue over here for later in the demonstration. There are other ways you can try to mitigate that. One, by using the hot wire method, trying to warp the pieces themselves to become longer to adhere to the wall better. But this one is very quick, easy, and you can actually reverse this process. All you have to do is just tear the hot glue, which holds together very well. So what you need to do in order to first deconstruct this Longlight launcher is to take a Phillips head screwdriver, the cross screwdriver. So you unhook it, unscrew it. Only requires 2 screws to come out. So what this does is it releases the holding latch for this. Now would be a good time to actually get this out. It's a little bit harder later on, but this will allow me to show you that 8-piece. That requires a little bit of force in order to remove, but here you go. So when you hear about people talking about skipping teeth in launches, when you hear that weird snap or that not so good sound that you should be all accustomed to by now if you've been using Beyblades for a while, what actually happens is, especially with these launchers, the teeth on the ripcords are actually fairly strong, and these aren't what goes out most of the time, as well as the ones inside the gears. Those hold up fairly well. It's actually these areas over here that become worn out. So whenever you see somebody really click into a launcher, especially repeatedly, what happens is these little nubs over here get worn down and warped to the point where they're not usable anymore. So this launcher was used by myself and several of my friends. So this has gone through some wear and tear, especially when I'm not watching or there. So they might be clicking these in, but almost all pretty much all ripcords go through wear and tear, and this is actually one of those major points. So what you can also do is remove this piece. So this is the 8 ring that I was talking about. It's shaped like an 8. It has 2 little nubs over here. And so every time you launch your Bay launcher, this will grip and adhere, and it will rotate every time. So when you're releasing the ripcord, it's going through a lot of torque, and so what happens, especially on the launchers, they'll just go through that. What you want your launcher to do is hold grip and stay there. So hold your Beyblade in place and then release. And this is especially useful for LR launchers, which slide left and right. So the wear could or could not be uniform. So in this case, this is fairly loose on both sides. So this is one of the reasons why I say do not click in your launchers. You're wearing this and this down, as well as you're doing some damage to the gears and the ripcord, because it is putting pressure on them. So what you need to do is lift this piece up. It's optional, but I'm going to do a full deconstruction. So get rid of the Beyblade logo, the top, this black and white circular area. So these 2 pieces, this also tells you if your Beyblade spinning, but this attaches to your Bay logger if you have one. This will help read the RPMs and tell if you have a good launch. It's also useful telling you if you have a Beyblade in your launcher. So have these removed. This is the main housing unit, which holds all your pieces together. Once I lift this, another piece will come pretty loose. This is the holder for your Bay launcher. So when I remove this piece, as you'll see over here, so this piece comes loose. And so what these pieces do, there's a spring in here, holds it in place. When your ripcord is in, this part is held down and allows your gear over here to freely spin. If it's fully up like this, it'll lock, or it'll interfere with this, and it'll keep you from being able to pull your ripcord. So I'll remove that. And the reason why I took out these 2 pieces, the 8-ring and the housing unit, the 8-ring housing, is so I can take out the gear fairly easily. So I'll remove this, and this. Here's my little coil over there, and this comes in 2 parts. So here is your main gear, and it'll slide up against this. So these pieces are fairly resilient. These don't warp as easily, and especially with how well the ripcords are, especially these thick ones. When you hear the term skipping teeth, a lot of times sometimes it's because of the connections being warped, but most of the time it's actually because of these 2 pieces. But as you can see here, the gear and the ripcord still are in fairly good shape. Not really warped on either side. And this is, I would consider this the locking mechanism between this and the ripcord. So once all these pieces line up over here, they'll seize up. So right now this is the ripcord fully deconstructed, all the pieces laid out separate. But they all have to go into a specific order, because even if you mess up just one thing, take for example this three-pointed circular ring over here. If you put this in this location right here, what's going to happen is this little ridge over here, this determines whether or not your ripcord will be able to push down far enough to let this turn. So if you have it upside down, what happens is the ripcord will just hold onto here and grip this until you literally have to break your launcher apart. Well, you have to tear your launcher down entirely again in order to turn this upside down. If not, it'll just seize up and you won't be able to pull forward or backward. So, as of now, this launcher is fully deconstructed. No more pieces are attached together. And I'll go over putting this back together. Now, what's good is you can, if you have another launcher, let's say you're not using or an even more broken down one, you can replace the parts from here, the same exact parts. Or you can harvest pieces from this one, switch out vice versa. But the first step to this is, in going in reverse order, is reattaching gear housing over here. So reattach this. This is also a good opportunity to clean parts. So I have a paintbrush over here. When you open these for the first time, and if you've been using your launcher and everything for the first time, when you finally open it, you'll see a lot of dust collect inside it from repeated launchings. The plastic, and all friction will eventually cause dust to scatter and build inside them. So you can use this as an opportunity to wash your parts or dust them. Personally, it just needs dusting, unless you spill something inside there. Meanwhile, that'd be the perfect time in order to use that. But for now, all you need to do is put this here. You can even attach the 8-ring again, which I'll probably do right now. You'd want to have it sitting flat side down, and for this ring over here, make sure that these recessed pieces are out, and make sure that the ridge is up. See the ridge right here is resting right there. Putting it right here. And you'll see where it locks in. You may not be able to see it here, but there are little hooks, and this is actually square shaped. This is actually rectangular shaped, not square shaped. And when you hook it in, it only hooks into one sort of way. And now you have your gear in. So the next step is putting back your spring-loaded holder, and that would be done by having it face this way with the flat facing over here. This should not be facing up. This should be facing up. So put the rod back in there. Put the spring back in. The spring should be on the same side as this little latch over here, like so. And the leg of this latch should fit on the outside. The holder right there. And let me turn this. So you'll feel resistance. You might need to hold this piece down. This next step is kind of funny, but you might need something to hold this down with, but I've done this enough times. You can just get it right. So the housing, the top housing over here, this together, and I just use a screwdriver just to make sure that the coil is entirely in. And what you can do is reattach the ripcord holder. Hold it down like that. And this is the time to check whether or not you can insert and take out your ripcord. Oops. Take out your ripcord. It's a little loose now because the bottom part, the 8-ring holder, isn't in place, as well as this. But if you can spin, if you can turn, your launcher's working right. So right now, just put the facing back on. It's the same way on both sides, but if you have a side where you want pointing up or down, depending on how this was printed, because there are little imperfections in here, you can choose whether or not you want to flip it a certain side, but it really doesn't matter. Put the main plastic rod back there. And the plastic rod only goes in one way. Put it the other side. It just stays there. And make sure when you reinsert it, the LR over here is reattached to the front where the launcher holder is. So that's back together. So I'm just going to reattach this normally just to show you. Since this always rotates, it doesn't really matter. Whenever you launch, it'll squeak by a little bit. But when you reattach it, what I like to do is I like to have it face entirely perpendicular, so like across, so I get the most what's considered teeth over here. So this is what I consider skipping teeth. So these are the teeth that are skipping. Reattach that. Sometimes you'll hear a snap, sometimes you don't. This piece only goes one way. Just a little nub over there. And then I'll screw these back in. Good thing I have a magnetic screwdriver. And screw it in. Make sure you don't overscrew. That way you don't strip the screw or damage any other components. Just go until you feel resistance, like so. And your launcher is back together. So when I reinsert the ripcord, there you go.